5 days after emergency surgery ended my pregnancy and nearly ended my life, my husband left me in a snowbound cabin without a phone, a car, or access to our money so he could fly to Miami with his mistress. Daniel stood in the bedroom doorway wearing the navy cashmere coat I had given him for our 12th anniversary. His hair was freshly cut. The expensive cedar cologne he saved for client dinners filled the cold room. In one hand he held my wallet. In the other, he turned the keys to our Chicago condo around his finger. At first I thought the pain medication had made me misunderstand him. The surgeon had removed my ruptured fallopian tube only 5 days earlier. Every breath pulled at the incision beneath my sweatpants, and the gray Michigan morning beyond the windows looked sharp enough to cut skin. Miami? I asked. You're going today? The flight leaves at 7:40. With Vanessa? His pause was shorter than mercy and longer than shame. Yes. I tried to sit up. Fire tore through my abdomen, forcing me back against the pillows. Daniel watched without moving. The surgeon's discharge instructions were still clipped to the dresser: no driving, no lifting, no stairs without assistance, and absolutely no time alone for the first week because internal bleeding and infection could become fatal quickly. He had nodded through every warning at Northwestern Memorial. He had held my hand and asked thoughtful questions. One nurse told me I was lucky to have such a devoted husband. Now he placed my wallet on the dresser, but not within my reach. There's canned soup in the pantry, he said. I stacked firewood beside the stove. It should last 10 days if you don't burn it too fast. The forecast says a storm. Tonight. The generator works. You told me not to touch it because of the exposed wire. He shrugged. Then don't touch it. The cabin had belonged to my mother. It sat outside Harbor Springs at the end of a private gravel road that became mud in November and vanished under snow by December. There was no internet. Cell service appeared only on a granite rise behind the pines, a 12-minute walk for a healthy person. The nearest year-round neighbor lived almost 4 miles away. Daniel had insisted I recover there because it was quiet. I had mistaken isolation for care. Give me my phone, I said. No, Daniel. You need rest, Claire. No emails, no calls, no drama. He said it gently, using the calm voice that had made him successful in commercial real estate. It was the voice he used when convincing a client that a structural crack was merely cosmetic. My doctor said I can't be alone. You always exaggerate pain when you're anxious. I almost died. And now you're making everything about that. For a moment I could only stare at him. Our baby had never developed far enough for a heartbeat, but I had already pictured a nursery. I had spent 3 nights in the hospital grieving something no one else had met. Daniel had sat beside me scrolling through messages beneath his blanket. I understood now who had been sending them. He pulled a folded paper from his coat and laid it on the bed. It was a storage receipt. I changed the locks at the condo this morning, he said. Your clothes and work files are in a unit in Cicero. I paid through the end of the month. My hearing narrowed until his words sounded submerged. You moved me out while I was in surgery? While you were sleeping afterward. It was easier. That condo is mine too. The deed situation is complicated. It has both our names. My attorney will explain. He looked toward the window instead of at me. That was when I knew there was more. What did you do to the accounts? Daniel's jaw tightened. I moved some funds for safekeeping. How much? About $286,000. The number struck harder than the surgery. It was nearly everything in our joint investment account, including the money from selling my mother's house. I had earned more than Daniel for 7 of our 12 married years as a crisis management consultant, but we had called it ours because that was what marriage was supposed to mean. Where is it? Invested. In what? A future that feels alive. I saw Vanessa then in every unexplained client dinner, every newly locked screen, every Saturday conference call Daniel took from his car. She was 31, polished and funny, the development coordinator who laughed with her whole body whenever he spoke. He had brought her to our home twice. The second time she admired my mother's blue glass bowl for so long that I told her the story of how it survived 3 military moves and a house fire. How long? I asked. Does it matter? How long have you been sleeping with her? 7 months. He finally faced me. There was relief in his expression, not guilt. He had rehearsed this confession until cruelty felt like honesty. Vanessa makes me laugh, he said. She doesn't come home carrying everyone else's disasters. I'm 41, Claire. I don't want another decade of watching you work, collapse, and call that a life. We were trying to have a child. You were trying. I stopped wanting that a long time ago. My body went still. You came to the appointments. Because saying no would have caused a scene. Did Vanessa know I was pregnant? She knew everything. Including the surgery? His eyes flicked away. The front door opened somewhere beyond the bedroom. A woman laughed softly. Vanessa was already inside my mother's cabin. She appeared behind Daniel wearing cream boots and a fitted red sweater beneath an open camel coat. She did not enter the room. She leaned against the hall wall, holding my phone and looking irritated rather than ashamed. "We need to leave," she said. "Traffic to Traverse City is getting worse." I looked at the phone in her hand. "You went through it?" "Daniel asked me to turn off your alerts." "Give it back." She glanced at him, and the glance told me everything about the new hierarchy. She expected him to protect her from me in my own family's cabin. "You'll only call lawyers and make yourself upset," Daniel said. "That's kidnapping logic. Don't be theatrical." Vanessa smiled then, barely. She really does make everything sound like a hostage situation. My grief became something colder. "You're standing in the bedroom of a woman who was cut open 5 days ago, holding her phone while her husband steals her money." The smile vanished. Daniel stepped closer to the bed. "Be careful what you call theft. The account was joint. And the deed is joint. Not for long." He placed my condo keys in his pocket. Then he reached for the water bottle beside me and moved it closer, an absurd little gesture of care that made his abandonment more monstrous. "The divorce petition will be filed Monday," he said. "We don't have children, so this can be clean." I pressed a hand over the incision. "You planned this around the operation." "I planned it around an opportunity." Vanessa called his name again. Daniel lifted his suitcase from the hall, kissed 2 fingers, and touched them to the air as though closing a business call. "Try to sleep," he said. The door slammed. Through the bedroom window I watched him load luggage into my Range Rover. Vanessa climbed into the passenger seat wearing my sunglasses. Daniel backed down the drive carefully, avoiding the pothole he had promised to fill last spring. Snow began drifting through the tire tracks before the taillights disappeared. I lay there listening to the cabin settle around me. The furnace clicked off. Wind pushed branches against the roof. On the dresser, my wallet contained no credit cards and $17 in cash. The landline had been disconnected years ago. My prescription bottle held 4 pain pills, though the pharmacy receipt showed 18. That detail mattered. Daniel had not simply left. He had measured how much discomfort I could endure without creating evidence of obvious physical harm. Food, wood, water, and 4 pills, enough to tell himself I would survive, not enough to let me function. He had planned my helplessness. Then I remembered the silver phone. It was an old device I used when traveling for work, small enough to fit inside the false cardboard bottom of a large acetaminophen box beneath the bed. Daniel hated redundancy. I built crisis plans for hospitals, universities, and family-owned companies, and he often joked that I would pack an emergency exit for a picnic. After my mother fell one night and could not reach me, I began keeping that second phone charged wherever I slept. My fingers shook as I lowered myself from the mattress. Sweat broke across my back. I crawled the 5 feet to the bed frame, reached beneath it, and pulled out the box. The phone showed 62% battery and 1 weak bar. I called my father. Frank Mercer answered on the second ring. "Claire? Dad, don't interrupt me." Daniel left me at Mom's cabin after emptying the joint account. He took my car and phone. He changed the locks at home. He's driving to Traverse City for a 7:40 flight to Miami with Vanessa Cole. Silence followed, but it was not confusion. My father had spent 35 years building a regional freight and aviation services company. Silence was what happened when he turned emotion into instructions. "Are you bleeding?" "I don't know. The pain is worse." "Temperature?" "No thermometer." "Can you reach the front door?" "Maybe once." "Unlock it and get back in bed." "I'm sending Eli by air. 40 minutes if weather allows." "I'm calling your surgeon now." "Dad, the money leaves a trail. Your body doesn't get a replacement. Stay awake. He has a flight." My father's voice flattened. "Not anymore." I should have felt triumphant. Instead I began crying so hard my abdomen spasmed. My father stayed on the line while I dragged myself toward the front room. He made me name objects I could see: braided rug, stone fireplace, green chair, brass lamp. Crisis grounding. I had taught it to him when my mother was dying, and now he used it to keep me conscious. At the door I saw a yellow note taped to the pantry. "Don't touch the generator. Rest. Back in 10 days. Below it Daniel had drawn a heart. I photographed the note with the second phone. The rescue helicopter arrived 52 minutes later, its blades beating snow into a white wall across the yard. Eli Grant, my father's director of security, entered with a paramedic and stopped when he saw the bedroom. He was a broad-shouldered former state trooper in his late 40s, normally impossible to surprise. His eyes moved from the discharge papers to the pill bottle, empty hook where the car keys belonged, and Daniel's note. "This wasn't a marital argument," he said. "This was deliberate isolation." Hearing someone else say it dissolved the last of my denial. The paramedic found my fever at 102.1 and blood where there should not have been blood. They wrapped me in blankets and carried me out. From the stretcher I saw a security camera beneath the porch roof, its red status light dark. Daniel had installed it after a break-in 2 years earlier. He controlled it through his phone. "Eli," I whispered. "Take the camera. Don't turn it on. Preserve the card." He followed my gaze and nodded. "Already thinking like yourself again." At the hospital, surgeons found an infection and a small internal bleed. Another 8 hours alone might not have killed me, but it could have changed the rest of my life. My father sat beside the bed with both hands wrapped around mine. He did not say he had warned me about Daniel. He did not ask why I had tolerated the small humiliations that came before the large one. He kissed my forehead and said, "Nobody gets to erase you while I'm still breathing." At 2:13 in the morning, Eli called with the first reversal. Daniel and Vanessa had reached the airport, but they had not boarded. My father's bank security contact could not arrest anyone or invent a crime, but my report of an unauthorized transfer triggered a legitimate fraud hold. Airport police met Daniel when he tried to use a frozen corporate travel card. After his personal cards were declined, the bank asked him to verify several transactions, including a $14,600 oceanfront suite and a $48,000 wire to a company called Sunward Consulting. Vanessa screamed at a gate agent. Daniel claimed his postoperative wife was emotionally unstable. Then police learned the Range Rover was registered solely to me and that I had reported it taken without permission. They missed the flight. The car was impounded. They spent the night in separate airport interview rooms. "That's only inconvenience," my father said after Eli hung up. "Do not confuse inconvenience with justice." The next morning my oldest friend arrived carrying a legal pad and no flowers. Maya Brooks and I had met in college when she corrected a professor who misquoted a case. 20 years later, she was one of Chicago's best forensic divorce attorneys. She wore a cobalt suit, flat shoes, and the expression of a woman who had already found 3 doors in a wall. "Tell me everything from the first time your instincts bothered you," she said. I began with Vanessa's laugh at a company holiday dinner 9 months earlier. I described Daniel's sudden password changes, unexplained Milwaukee trips, and insistence that we refinance the condo. I showed her bank alerts I had archived, calendar invitations Daniel had accidentally synced, and a hotel receipt charged to a dormant consulting account. Maya never called me foolish. When I apologized for missing the signs, she held up one hand. "Trust is not negligence," she said. "His deception is not evidence that you failed to investigate your marriage properly." She asked about the cabin, the medication, the camera, the deed, my wallet, and every sentence Daniel had spoken. When I mentioned the storage unit, she looked at Eli. "Secure it before anything disappears." By noon, Maya had filed emergency petitions to freeze marital assets, restore my access to the condo, preserve digital records, and prohibit Daniel from moving or destroying property. She also contacted the hospital's social worker, who documented the danger created by leaving a postoperative patient without transportation or communication. "I'm not promising a television ending," Maya said. "Courts move slowly, facts get argued, and cruel behavior is not always illegal. But forged papers, hidden assets, and fraud leave harder edges." "You think there are forged papers?" "A man does not move his wife's belongings, change locks, empty accounts, disable cameras, take medication, and book a mistress a vacation without paperwork somewhere." The emergency hearing took place 4 days later. By video because I was still hospitalized. Daniel appeared from his attorney's conference room in a gray suit. His mother, Patricia, sat just outside the camera frame but leaned in often enough for us to see her pearl earrings and furious mouth. Daniel's attorney described the cabin as a peaceful family property stocked for recovery. He said Daniel believed I wanted privacy after the pregnancy loss. He called the transfer prudent financial restructuring during a marital separation. Judge Elena Ramirez looked over her glasses. "Privacy is requested. Isolation is imposed. Which one occurred here?" Daniel cleared his throat. Claire knew where the spare phone was. My entire side of the screen went still. Maya leaned toward the camera. "Mr. Hale, are you testifying that you knowingly left your postoperative wife without her primary phone? Because you expected her to crawl under a bed for a hidden backup device?" "No. I mean, she always has contingency plans." "Then why did you take her wallet and remove every credit card?" "To prevent impulsive online spending while she was medicated." Judge Ramirez's expression hardened. "And the vehicle?" "I needed transportation." Maya displayed the discharge sheet, the photograph of the pantry note, the pharmacy receipt, the airline itinerary, and the $286,000 transfer. She showed a still image recovered from the porch camera's memory card, Daniel testing the camera 3 hours before leaving, then deliberately switching it off. His attorney requested a recess. The judge denied it. She ordered the accounts frozen, gave me temporary exclusive use of the condo, required preservation of all business and personal records, and barred Daniel from entering the cabin or storage unit. She also ordered him to return my phone and medical property immediately. When the hearing ended, Patricia called me from an unfamiliar number. "You have humiliated my son in front of a judge," she said. "Your son left me bleeding in the woods. He left food. You have always been dramatic about your health." I remembered Patricia visiting the hospital for 19 minutes, looking at the empty bassinet card on the wall, and telling me that at least the pregnancy had ended before anyone became attached. "Do not call me again. Marriage means forgiveness, Claire. A man can make a mistake without losing everything." This required reservations, movers, a locksmith, a bank transfer, stolen medication, and a disabled camera. Which part was the mistake? She hung up. Eli took me back to the condo 2 days later. My key still did not work, so a court-authorized locksmith opened the door. The place looked staged for sale. My photographs were gone. Vanessa's white orchids stood on the dining table. In my closet, her dresses occupied the section where my work suits had hung. On Daniel's nightstand lay a framed photograph of them on a sailboat. It was dated 4 months before my surgery. I did not smash it. I photographed it, put it in an evidence box, and changed every lock. At the storage unit, we found my clothes thrown into plastic contractor bags. Family albums had been stacked beneath a leaking pipe. My mother's blue glass bowl was missing. For the first time since the cabin, anger became larger than pain. 3 days later, Maya arrived with 2 forensic accountants and the second reversal. Daniel had not moved $286,000 into a conventional investment. He had routed it through Sunward Consulting, the company listed on the airport fraud alert. Vanessa was the sole registered owner. The company had no employees, no clients, and a mailbox address in Delaware. It owned a furnished condo in Miami purchased for $612,000. "He didn't plan a vacation," Maya said. "He planned a relocation. With my mother's money." With that, and more. The accountants uncovered 2 additional entities, a cryptocurrency account, and a lakefront parcel in Wisconsin. Over 3 years, Daniel had siphoned nearly $940,000 from commissions, refinanced assets, and consulting income. Some of the money came from a line of credit opened against the Chicago condo. "I never signed a line of credit," I said. Maya slid a copy across the table. My signature appeared at the bottom. It looked almost perfect. Almost. I wrote my last name with a slight break between the L and the A habit left by a broken finger in high school. The signature on the loan document flowed continuously. Whoever copied it had used an older sample. "That's forged," I said. Maya nodded. "Now we have the hard edge." Daniel had not merely prepared to leave me. He had been building an exit funded by my labor while encouraging me to undergo fertility treatment he no longer wanted. My medical crisis had given him the perfect window. I would be sedated, immobile, grieving, and easy to characterize as unstable. But the deeper we looked, the stranger the plan became. The forged loan had been notarized by a woman named Denise Cole, Vanessa's mother. That was the first sign that Daniel was not the only person who had mistaken my trust for blindness. Maya advised me not to contact Vanessa. Daniel's attorney was already arguing that I had weaponized my father's influence, and any angry message could become a gift to them. So I waited while the forensic team traced dates, devices, and IP addresses. Waiting was its own punishment. My body healed in humiliating increments. The first time I showered alone, I sat on the tile floor afterward and cried because lifting a towel had exhausted me. The pregnancy apps on my phone continued sending cheerful updates until I deleted them. At night I woke convinced I heard Daniel in the kitchen, and for one confused second I felt safe before memory returned. My father wanted me to move into his house in Lake Forest. I refused. The condo was not peaceful, but leaving it because Daniel had tried to expel me felt like obeying him late. I slept in the guest room and kept a lamp on in the hall. Eli installed cameras that only I controlled and a lock with a physical backup key. On the 9th night, the hallway camera alerted at 1:16 a.m. A man in a delivery jacket stood outside holding a florist box. He covered the peephole with one hand and tried a key with the other. Eli reached the building security desk before the man reached the elevator. Police found no flowers in the box. It contained a compact hard drive, a cable, and a device capable of cloning data from certain older home security hubs. The man claimed Daniel had hired him to retrieve personal business files that belonged to a client. Daniel claimed he had only requested a document pickup and knew nothing about the equipment. No one was arrested that night, but the incident destroyed his argument that he had accepted the court order in good faith. More importantly, it told Maya what he feared. "Not jewelry," she said the next morning. "Not clothes. Data. We searched the condo again. Behind the router cabinet, Eli found a network storage drive Daniel had installed years earlier to back up photographs and tax returns. Daniel had wiped its visible folders remotely, but the drive retained fragments. The recovered files gave us the third reversal. Sunward Consulting was not Vanessa's idea. She had signed formation papers and attended closings, but Daniel had created parallel bookkeeping that made her appear responsible for every questionable transfer. Emails showed him telling her the arrangement was a temporary tax structure for their future. In private notes to his financial advisor, however, he described Vanessa as the registered risk holder. If investigators came, Daniel planned to say she had stolen from his company and manipulated him during marital stress. Vanessa was his mistress, accomplice, and intended scapegoat. Maya set the printed emails on my dining table. Do not mistake being used for being innocent. I don't. But frightened accomplices sometimes produce useful records. As if summoned by the sentence, Vanessa called me that afternoon. Her voice had lost its glossy confidence. I need to talk. Call my lawyer. Daniel said your lawyer will turn me over to prosecutors. That depends on what you did. I didn't know about the loan. Your mother notarized my forged signature. There was a long breath. She notarized a page Daniel brought her. She thought you had signed it already. That is still illegal. I know. Did you know I had just had surgery when you took my phone? Silence. Did you know I was under orders not to be alone? Daniel said the doctor was overreacting. You saw me unable to sit up. I know. Her voice cracked. I am not asking you to forgive me. Good. I have messages. Recordings too. He made me keep copies because he said you might accuse us of an affair and he wanted proof that you were unstable. But the recordings show what he planned. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to refuse anything she offered. Accepting her help felt like allowing her to enter my life again. Then I remembered the pantry note with its drawn heart. Send everything to Maya, I said. Do not delete a single message. Do not edit the recordings. And do not contact me directly again. Vanessa delivered 18 months of messages, 6 audio recordings, and a cloud folder Daniel did not know she had copied. The material did not absolve her. It showed her mocking my work hours, calling the fertility treatment Claire's expensive fantasy, and selecting furniture for the Miami condo while I injected hormones into my abdomen. She knew the $286,000 came from our marriage. She knew Daniel intended to lock me out. But 3 weeks before my surgery, Vanessa had asked what would happen if I became ill during the cabin stay. Daniel's written answer was simple: she always survives. In a recording made the night before he left me, she asked whether taking my phone was necessary. If Claire can make calls, she can control the narrative, Daniel replied. I need 48 hours before her father gets involved. By then the funds clear, the filing is timestamped, and we're in Florida. What if she gets worse? There's food. Stop making this emotional. Then came a sound I recognized, the click of my mother's blue glass bowl being set on a stone countertop. Daniel said, pack this carefully. It's worth something. The bowl was in Miami. I listened to that recording once. Maya listened 6 times. The forensic accountant aligned it with transfer records, airline bookings, and metadata from the disabled porch camera. What had felt like a private nightmare became a timeline. Daniel had expected 48 hours. My second phone reduced his advantage to 11 minutes. His response was to begin a public campaign. Friends received a carefully written email describing me as emotionally volatile after a tragic loss. He said my father had pressured banks and police to punish him for asking for a divorce. Patricia called members of our church and told them I had always cared more about money than family. Anonymous comments appeared under my consulting firm's posts, asking whether clients should trust a crisis advisor who could not manage her own marriage. For years I had protected institutions from reputational collapse. Now my husband was using the language of my profession against me. My partners asked me to take a leave of absence. They framed it as compassion, but I heard the fear beneath it. Daniel knew that if he damaged my credibility, he could weaken both my income and my ability to testify calmly. I almost resigned. Maya stopped me from sending the email. He isolated you physically and failed. Now he is trying socially. Same strategy, different room. Clients are already asking questions. Then answer with facts where you legally can, and let your record speak. Where you cannot. My father wanted to issue a furious statement. I asked him not to. Instead, my firm retained independent counsel and released 3 sentences confirming that I was recovering from a medical emergency and involved in private litigation, with no effect on client work or professional conduct. Then I returned to one small project remotely. The first meeting terrified me more than the hearing. 12 executives appeared on my screen expecting authority. My hands trembled beneath the desk. I began anyway. A crisis creates a vacuum, I told them. If you do not fill it with verified facts, someone else fills it with a useful fiction. As I heard the words, I realized I was speaking to myself. The financial audit expanded. Daniel's Hidden Lake parcel had been purchased through a company belonging to one of his clients, a retired surgeon named Howard Bell. When contacted, Howard insisted the company had no connection to Daniel. Then Maya showed him a wire bearing his authorization code. Howard's attorney called back within an hour. Daniel had persuaded at least 3 clients to place investment funds into development opportunities that did not exist. He used later deposits to pay earlier promised returns. The marital theft was only one compartment in a larger structure. My money had been intended to keep that structure from collapsing while he moved to Florida. That was the 4th reversal. The affair was not the reason for the escape. It was the decoration on an escape already necessary. If Daniel had simply wanted Vanessa, he could have filed for divorce. He needed me sedated and silent because $286,000 was supposed to cover a payment due to an investor on Monday. The Miami condo was both reward and refuge. Vanessa believed they were beginning a glamorous life. Daniel was running from a financial fire. Federal investigators became interested. Maya warned me that the divorce could become entangled with criminal inquiries and take years. Assets might be seized. Agreements could be delayed. The satisfying, clean reversal I imagined from my hospital bed might never arrive in one dramatic moment. Can we prove what he did to me? I asked. Yes. Can we make him admit it? Maybe not. Then what does winning look like? Maya considered before answering. Safety. Control of your own money. A truthful record. The ability to wake up without organizing your day around his next move. Anything beyond that is a bonus. The main evidentiary hearing occurred 6 weeks after the cabin. I could walk without assistance by then, though the incision still pulled when I stood too quickly. I wore a black suit and my mother's small silver earrings. My father waited outside because I wanted to enter under my own power. Daniel sat at the opposite table looking thinner. His expensive haircut had grown unevenly. Patricia sat behind him. Vanessa entered separately with her own attorney and did not look at either of us. Maya began with the transfer. She built the timeline one piece at a time: surgery on Thursday, movers on Friday, locksmith Saturday morning, camera disabled at 10:03, transfer initiated at 10:19, phone taken at 11:04, departure at 11:12, fraud report at 11:23. Daniel's attorney argued that married people move money and separate every day. Maya displayed the recording transcript. How many separating spouses calculate that they need 48 hours before a postoperative partner can make a call? She asked. The judge allowed the audio. Daniel's voice filled the courtroom. If Claire can make calls, she can control the narrative. I watched his face as his own confidence returned to accuse him. His lips tightened. His eyes moved to Vanessa for the first time. She stared forward. Next came the forged home equity document. A handwriting expert explained the copied signature and pressure patterns. Digital records showed the file had been created on Daniel's laptop. Denise Cole had notarized it while her commission was expired. Vanessa's attorney stipulated that her client had not witnessed me sign anything. Daniel whispered angrily to his lawyer. Then Maya produced the pharmacy record. Security video from the drugstore showed Daniel collecting my medication. Only 4 tablets remained at the cabin. A message to Vanessa sent that afternoon read, "Took enough so she sleeps but not enough to make her stupid." My stomach turned. Until then I had assumed he removed the pills simply to limit my mobility. The message suggested he had rationed them to control when I was alert. Judge Ramirez removed her glasses. "Mr. Hale, did you make a medical decision about how much prescribed pain medication your wife should receive?" Daniel's attorney stood. "My client invokes his right not to answer in light of a related investigation." That sentence changed the air. Patricia began crying behind him. Not softly. She sobbed with the wounded outrage of a mother watching consequences arrive for the wrong person. During a recess she cornered me near the elevators. "You have made your point," she said. "He has lost his job. His clients are abandoning him. Vanessa betrayed him. What more do you want?" "My life back. He is still your husband." He used that title as access. She gripped my forearm. Eli stepped forward, but I raised my other hand. I wanted her to hear me without anyone rescuing me from the sentence. "Your son watched me fold in pain and carried my phone out the door," I said. "He counted pills. He moved my mother's photographs under a leaking pipe. He borrowed against my home with my signature. Do not ask what more I want as if I am the one taking too much." Patricia released me. "He said you never loved him properly. Then he should have left with his own money." Back in court, Vanessa testified under a cooperation agreement. She admitted the affair, the the shell company, the Miami purchase, and her role at the cabin. She did not decorate her guilt with excuses. Mrs. Hale asked for her phone, Maya said. Why didn't you return it? Vanessa swallowed. Because I wanted the life he promised me more than I cared what happened to her. The honesty hurt more than a lie. What changed? At the airport, he told police the transfers were mine. He said I had access to his passwords and might be having some kind of episode. It was the same story he told about Claire. When did you realize you were intended to bear the legal risk? When my lawyer showed me the registered risk-holder note. Daniel stared at her with open hatred. Vanessa continued. He said Claire was too tired and sick to fight. He said women become easy to rewrite when they are ashamed. That was the fifth and deepest reversal. Daniel had not chosen Vanessa because she was uniquely joyful or exciting. He chose women according to what function they could perform in his story. I had been the respectable wife, high earner, and source of credit. Vanessa was the admiring escape partner and legal shield. When either of us stopped serving the role, he described us as unstable. I had spent months asking what Vanessa possessed that I lacked. The answer was nothing. We were not competing for love. We were being assigned different jobs inside the same deception. The judge's temporary ruling was severe. Daniel lost access to the condo and every disputed account. The $286,000 transfer was reversed before Sunward could move it again. A receiver took control of the shell companies and properties. The court ordered him to pay my immediate medical and legal expenses from his separate assets, subject to the criminal investigation. The forged lien was suspended. But the most important line came near the end. The evidence does not describe an impulsive separation, Judge Ramirez said. It describes a coordinated attempt to deprive a medically vulnerable spouse of communication, transportation, property, and the ability to seek timely help. A truthful record. Maya had told me that was part of winning. I did not realize how badly I needed an authority to name what happened without softening it into marital trouble. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited because of Daniel's clients and my father's company. Maya advised me to say nothing. Then one reporter called out, Claire, did you use your father's connections to destroy your husband? I stopped. My husband left me after emergency surgery without a phone or vehicle and moved our money through a shell company, I said. Verified records exposed him. Connections did not create those records. I walked away before anyone could ask another question. The clip circulated widely. Some strangers accused me of revenge. Many more wrote that a partner had hidden keys, canceled cards, controlled medication, or convinced others that they were unstable. I read until the stories became too heavy. One email came from a nurse named Tasha whose husband had disabled her phone service while she recovered from a C-section. She wrote, I thought it did not count because he brought groceries. That sentence stayed with me. Abuse rarely announces itself with a complete absence of provisions. Sometimes it leaves soup, stacked firewood, and a note telling you to rest. The small allowance becomes part of the defense. I fed her. I sheltered her. I did not intend harm. The question is not whether something was left. The question is what was taken and why. The criminal case unfolded over the next 9 months. Daniel pleaded not guilty to fraud-related charges. His former clients sued. The development firm fired him after an internal audit found altered documents. Patricia sold her vacation condo to pay part of his legal defense, then left me 14 voicemails asking me to testify that stress had changed his behavior. I answered once in writing, I will tell the truth under oath. The divorce settlement came before trial. Daniel agreed to return all marital funds under his control, relinquish his interest in the Chicago condo, accept responsibility for the forged loan costs, and give up claims to my firm and inheritance. The receiver sold the Miami condo. Before the sale, investigators recovered my mother's blue glass bowl from a kitchen cabinet. Eli brought it to me wrapped in a gray evidence blanket. A thin crack ran from the rim halfway down one side. I held it against the light. My mother had loved that bowl not because it was valuable but because it survived. I almost laughed at how perfectly Daniel had misunderstood it. He had taken it believing it could be sold. He never knew its worth came from the fire it had already endured. I asked a glass artist to repair it with a clear resin that left the crack visible. I did not want it disguised. My physical scar faded from red to silver. The invisible injuries changed more slowly. I flinched when friends offered to hold my phone. I checked account balances at 3 a.m. I kept overnight bags in both my car and office. For months, preparedness stopped feeling like competence and became fear wearing a clipboard. A trauma therapist named Dr. Lena Ortiz helped me separate caution from captivity. She asked me to make 2 lists, the safeguards that expanded my life and the rituals that made it smaller. A backup phone expanded it. Sleeping with a chair under the door made it smaller. Independent accounts expanded it. reading Daniel's old messages until sunrise made it smaller. I began removing one chair at a time. I sold the condo after the divorce became final. Even with new locks, every room contained an argument with the past. My father called the sale a strategic retreat. Maya called it choosing my own address. I bought a brick house in Evanston with a small garden, a wide kitchen window, and an office facing east. The first object I placed inside was the repaired blue bowl. The second was a charger for the silver phone. Maya came to dinner so often that she left a sweater over one chair. Eli installed cameras but made me enter every password myself. My father pretended to complain that my kitchen knives were dull, then replaced all of them. Care began to look different when it did not require surrender. One Sunday, Tasha, the nurse who had emailed me, came for coffee. She had left her husband and was staying with relatives, but her identity documents and paychecks still went to accounts he controlled. She did not need inspiration. She needed a lawyer, a secure device, transportation, and someone to believe the practical details of her danger. After she left, I called Maya. "We know how to do this," I said. "Do what?" "Build exit plans before a crisis becomes a cabin." That conversation became Signal House, a non-profit partnership offering emergency phones, document storage, transportation grants, legal referrals, and temporary lodging to people facing financial or technological control. My father provided unused office space but no branding. He understood that it could not become a monument to our family. Maya recruited lawyers. Eli designed safety plans. Dr. Ortiz trained volunteers to help without taking over. Our first client arrived with 2 children and a grocery bag of clothes. Her partner had shut off her cards and reported the family car stolen when she tried to leave. She kept apologizing for needing help. "You do not have to earn safety by being the perfect victim," I told her. She began to cry. So did I. Signal House did not turn my suffering into a blessing. I rejected that language. What Daniel did remained wrong, and no good outcome traveled backward in time to justify it. The work simply gave my survival direction. Vanessa completed her cooperation and faced consequences of her own. Through attorneys, she sent me a letter. She did not ask forgiveness. She described the moment at the cabin when she saw me grab my incision and chose to walk away. She wrote that it was the clearest measure of who she had become. I did not respond. Accountability did not require access to me. Daniel pleaded guilty to wire fraud, document fraud, and offenses related to client funds. The sentence was substantial but less cinematic than strangers online wanted. There was no gasp in the courtroom, no instant collapse, no music. He stood, answered the judge, and was led through a side door. Months later I saw him once more at a courthouse conference about remaining property. He wore a plain suit that hung loosely from his shoulders. Without the polished office, expensive watch, and practiced social ease, he looked ordinary. He asked for 2 minutes alone. Maya objected, but I agreed to speak in the glass-walled consultation room while she remained outside. Daniel sat across from me. "I'm sorry." I waited. "I know that isn't enough. It isn't information either." He looked down at his hands. "I kept telling myself you would be fine. You're always fine." That was not faith in me. It was permission for you. I was drowning. "So you tied weight to everyone nearby." His eyes filled. Once, the sight of Daniel crying would have reordered my entire body around comforting him. Now I felt sadness without obligation. "Vanessa left," he said. "My mother barely speaks to me. I lost everything." "No. You lost what you tried to steal and what you used to hide the stealing. Those are consequences, not mysteries. Did you ever think I could change? I thought love could make your choices less important. That was my mistake." He leaned forward. "Can you forgive me?" I understood then that he still wanted me to perform a function. Forgiveness would become evidence for him that he was not the man described in the court record. He wanted relief from the person he had harmed because earning it elsewhere would take longer. "I am not carrying hatred for you," I said. "But I will not give you a clean version of what happened. You left me in that cabin because you believed my weakness made me removable. Live with the true sentence." I stood. He did not ask me to stay. 1 year after the helicopter carried me out, I returned to the cabin with my father. The road was wet but clear. Pines pressed close on both sides, and the lake beyond them reflected a pale November sky. Eli had repaired the generator months earlier. The pantry note remained sealed in an evidence bag in Maya's office, so the yellow wall was blank. In the bedroom, afternoon light crossed the wooden bed where I had believed my life was ending. I placed the empty acetaminophen box on the quilt. My father stood in the doorway. "Do you want to sell this place?" I thought I did. "And now?" I looked around at my mother's dresser, the braided rug, and the window through which I had watched my car disappear. Daniel had occupied the cabin for 11 minutes of cruelty. My family had loved it for 26 years. I was not going to confuse the worst thing that happened in a room with the room's entire meaning. Now I want to fix the roof, I said. We made coffee and sat on the porch wearing heavy coats. My father admitted that he had wanted to ruin Daniel before the facts were even gathered. You stopped me, he said. Maya stopped both of us. Good lawyer. Good friend. Snow began as tiny white points between the trees. I expected fear, but what came was grief, cleaner now, no longer mixed with confusion. I grieved the child I had imagined, the marriage I thought I had, and the woman who believed competence could protect her from betrayal. Then the grief moved through instead of building a house. I walked to the granite rise behind the pines. A year earlier, reaching it would have been impossible. Now I climbed slowly, feeling strength in the muscles that had once failed me. At the top, my phone found 3 bars. There were messages from Signal House. A client had reached safe housing. A volunteer needed approval for a transportation grant. Maya had sent a photograph of takeout menus with the caption "Emergency Board Meeting." Life waited on the other side of the signal, but it no longer controlled the moment. I turned the phone off and returned to the porch. The surgery left a small silver line across my abdomen. Betrayal left another scar where unquestioned trust used to live. Neither scar is a command. They are records, like the repaired crack in my mother's bowl, proof that damage occurred and that survival did not require pretending otherwise. Daniel believed taking my phone would take my voice. He believed moving money would move power. He believed changing locks would change ownership, and that leaving food made abandonment look like care. What he never understood was that control depends on the victim accepting the controller's version of reality. My second phone did more than summon a helicopter. It interrupted his narrative before it hardened around me. It reached my father, my doctor, my lawyer, and eventually hundreds of people who had been told that their isolation was love, their fear was drama, and their dependence was a personal failure. Today, when someone enters Signal House clutching a dead phone or a folder of hidden documents, I do not tell them to be brave. They have usually been brave for too long. I tell them we will begin with facts, where they can sleep, which account is safe, who can pick them up, what medication they need, and whose number they know by heart. Then I tell them the sentence I needed in the cabin. What is happening to you is real. Sometimes that is the first door toward a life reclaimed. The next steps are rarely dramatic. We label chargers, copy insurance cards, arrange rides, and write phone numbers on paper in case a device disappears. We ask who controls the passwords and whether a prescription can be replaced. These details once seemed too ordinary to belong in a story about survival. Now I know ordinary details are where control hides and where freedom first becomes practical. A safe night, an unlocked account, and one trusted person can be more powerful than any speech. Daniel drove away believing the cold would keep me quiet long enough for him to build paradise from stolen pieces of my life. Instead, the cold stripped every excuse down to its frame. It showed me the difference between protection and possession, between forgiveness and access, between a husband's title and a husband's choices. He left me with $17, for pain pills, canned soup, and a warning not to touch the generator. He forgot that I had spent my life preparing for the call no one expected. And he forgot that even in the deepest silence, one working signal is enough to change who gets to tell the story. I keep that silver phone charged in my desk at Signal House. It is scratched, outdated, and worth almost nothing to anyone else. To me it is a reminder that rescue can begin quietly, with a hidden plan, a remembered number, and the decision to trust your own fear. No one who reaches us is ever told that the danger is too small to count.